This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight now, we bring you a discussion on attaining self-reliance in the defence sector under AatmaNirbhar Bharat initiative. The participants are Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, Defence Analyst, and Ajay Banerjee, Journalist.
General Bhatia, you now head the St. George, that is Center for Joint Warfare Studies. There has been a lot of talk about AatmaNirbharta or self-reliance in terms of military equipment. Sir, could you explain to our listeners what is AatmaNirbharta mean in your words?
Firstly, AatmaNirbharta means, in simple words, it is self-reliance, especially when we talk about self-reliance in defense manufacturing. India, as we all know, is a risen, responsible, resurgent, respected power and a global leader. We have an economy which was going pre-COVID. Of course, post-COVID, the world order will change. And in the emerging world order, the geostrategic and geopolitical equations will change and dictate the world order of the rest of the century. And hence, it's imperative that as a nation, we exert our rightful place in the competitive nations and the emerging world order. In the new geostrategic construct and of the Indo-Pacific and a growing China points to a bipolar world and not a multipolar world, with India as a balancing power. So what I'm trying to basically say is that it's important for India that the Indian military contributes to India's aspirations as a global leader and for Indian military to be a military power. We are the second largest army in the world. One of the reasons for that is that we are not self-reliant in the defense manufacturing sector. 63% are military hardware is imports. So we have to be self-reliant, and that is where self-reliance is very exceedingly important to ensure need of a growing India in the world order and ensure our strategic autonomy. Especially in 2020, the two C's, COVID-19 and China, have changed everything. They are the biggest disruptors. And we will see that Indian armed forces will be required to do more and more. There will be lesser budgets and more tasks.
General Bhatia, that's a very good point. Now, I'll bring you on to explain it, to dissect it further. We have had a new list of 101 items which will only be made in India progressively. These items range from all kinds of military equipment on land, air and sea. But I must tell our listeners that India has done very good job in making warships. We are making almost all our warships on our own. And the float content, which means the ship and its engine content, is almost 60 to 70% local. Same goes with a lot of work which is being done in missiles, path-breaking work actually. General Bhatia, how do we differentiate? But we are still importing, for example, cutting-edge helicopters or cutting-edge surveillance planes. How does this dichotomy, can you explain that?
Wherever we have focused our energies, like you slightly said, warships, the dockyards, the shipyards, doing an exceedingly good job. Similarly, our integrated missile development programs is really progressing very well. But then we fail to do even small things. The 80% of our military hardware is low to medium technology. It's not high-end technologies, low to medium technologies. We do not have an assault rifle, and assault rifle is basically an appendage to a soldier. And we have not been able to give him a good Indian indigenous made assault rifles. We are now getting our assault rifles from US, getting from Russia, AK-203. So we have failed. But when we focus our energies, I think we will succeed out there. We have two excellent things we can replicate. The models of, I would say, Defense Atomic Energy Commission and the ISRO. If two models we replicate in the defense, I think we'll be able to do much, much better. It's a good beginning, but there's a lot more to be done. We waste a lot of our energy and resources in trying to get imports, so we're dependent on them. We have, in the last 4 years or 5 years, have gone for emergent procurements after surgical strikes, after Doklam, after the precision airstrikes in Balakot, and even now along the LAC, China's aggressiveness. So what we need is a self-reliant India being able to meet the demands of the Indian armed forces, perform indigenous capabilities, or make in India, which is manufacturing is in India. It is exceedingly important that we have not only strategic autonomy, but we also have something called war-based reserves. If we have manufacturing in India for own military hardware, we can also go on to what I say surge capacities, so we don't need to maintain such large inventories. But this has to be all over. It cannot be in just 2 to 3 items.
General Bhatia, that is a dichotomy actually. I'll put you two very short questions. First, we are making an aircraft carrier on our own, but we are not making a rifle on our own. This is a dichotomy. And second, sir, do you want a list which is of essential items and non-essential items? There could be a total target to say that essential items have to be made in India to a particular date. These two things, could you explain to our listeners?
We need to have category A, B, C, and such essential items to be made in India, which could be the category A, then category B would be essential, and category C could be desirable. These items should be made in India, and we should have a roadmap for that. We should not be apprehensive and fearful about failing. We should get the model first. We should induct into the services, and all stakeholders in that, be it the scientific community, BPSUs, be it the private industry and the armed forces, all stakeholders have to see on the same platform, move together and ensure that the equipment is inducted, and thereafter we can improve upon it. There's a Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, product improvement takes place. So that is how most nations do it, and we should not shy away from it. But the point that India, given its security threats, has to be present, relevant and future ready. So we'll have to have a very judicious mix of what we want to do.
And sir, would you want that the private sector has more participation in this, what you say, category A, B, C kind of system, which will lay down guidelines what is to be imported, what to be made in India?
Yes, we cannot do without the private sector. Unfortunately, the private sector is trying to be part of the self-reliance defense manufacturing, but the government we got DPSUs, 9 of them, and 41 ordnance factories, and the Department of Defense Production. So we need to get the private industry on board. A number of things have been done with the Ministry of Defense now. A little too late, a little too little. We need to do much more on that. We are the largest importers of military hardware in the world as per the 2018. And 19 was second because Saudi Arabia was more than 13% of the world's imports, the world global sales of military hardware to India. So we'll have to look at all these things, and we need changes in the Department of Defense Production. We need to encourage the defense industry, and a number of actions have been taken. I can talk about them a little later, but we need to do much more. We have to have a fixed roadmap for it, and we got to get the private industry on board so that we have an ecosystem which is there. We encourage MCMEs, and we need to really go and become a net exporter than to be the biggest importer.
Since you spoke about exports, I must tell the listeners that military hardware exports from India have crossed around 12,000 crore rupees this time and expected to grow. And the minister has set a target of around $5 billion worth of exports. That will be around 35,000 crore worth of exports from India in the next 5 to 7 years. I hope he can materialize. General Bhatia, I'll take you further into the discussion. Dissecting it further, AatmaNirbharta means self-reliance. As you rightly point out, we are the second largest importer of military equipment and hardware in the world at the moment. How do you see this panning out in the next 5 years?
I think that is the next 5 years is going to be the game changer. A number of things are being done. We have the 2 defense corridors coming. We have the innovation of defense excellence, which has been initiated in the Ministry of Defense. The defense investor cell has been there. We also have a new simplified Make 2 procedure. An IPR facility cell has been launched. Being a new DAP 2020, I have my apprehension about the new DAP because it's just too long. We need simple rules, simple procedures. So the policy changes are there, but the point is that we need to make sure that the procedures and processes are friendly to self-reliance. The challenge will lie in ensuring the procedures and processes and not the policies. The policies are there.
Sir, this Make in India, does it close the door for foreign companies to come here? Because Prime Minister Modi and Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh were very clear in the past few weeks that foreign companies can come here, join hands with Indian company and make in India. Would that be a good option for us to explore?
Yes, that would be a good option because FDI has increased from 49 to 74%. If the manufacturing units are in India, the ecosystem will grow. We should have joint ventures with the companies. We should privatize the whole thing. We should get the bang for the buck in the armed forces. Like I said, the armed forces will be asked to do more and more and less and less. We have to ensure that the armed forces get the optimal material at optimal cost. Budgets will always be a restraint, and we got to maximize the budget. So we should look at foreign companies, OEMs, that is original equipment manufacturers, having a joint venture with India, manufacturing hub in India. So that will create the ecosystem. If we think the ecosystem will be created by the public sector and the ordnance factory board, yes, they have created the ecosystem. That is not enough for a large armed forces like ours.
General Bhatia, to name a few companies, Lockheed Martin says if it gets a contract, it will come and make in India. Though Lockheed Martin is already making a lot of stuff in India, the Tata Lockheed Martin plant in Hyderabad. The Karakal, the UAE gun maker, says we can come and make in India. Almost everybody is saying we can come and make in India. Even the French made an offer of make in India. You think this can materialize?
I think the point of can or will has gone. We have to make it happen. We have to incentivize that they come and they make in India, and the strategic partnership model. Honestly, it's not taken off for the last 6 years. We had this model and it's not taken off. Like I said, the procedures become lengthy. It is governed by novel procedures. So defense has to have their own procedures which encourage the industry to set up in India. And we have the skilled manpower, we have cheap labor out here. It will also facilitate employment generation. It will add to our economy. There's so many good things that are going to happen. But the government has to ensure that other than the policy, the procedure and processes remain simple, they're user-friendly, they're industry-friendly, and the industry has to come up and make sure that they meet the demands of the armed forces also. And foreign joint ventures are the answer, especially in a number of big projects or even small projects like AK-203.
The AK-203, the joint India-Russia venture to make rifles. And also, I'll refer to the Kamov 226 helicopter, both India-Russia joint ventures, which have not taken off in the past 3-4 years. It is a serious delay actually. Why is it not happening? Because everybody keeps on asking, because the joint venture, government to government, India, Russia, very old partners. Why is it not taking off?
These are negotiations which continue on and on and on. The project is languishing. It has not started and it's not foreclosed. So there is hope of it starting, but it's taken too long for it to start. The ordnance factory Korba has been set up for AK-203 for the last year and a half to 2 years. We have a major channel for the first time. We posted there to make sure that the factory comes up well and the product meets the quality and the time overruns are not there, the cost overruns are not there. But the fact is the contracts are not taking place. So negotiations are on. Similarly for helicopters, we are wasting our energy and resources and time overruns on this. That is what I'm saying. It has to be monitored like the ISRO model or the Atomic Energy Commission model. So those models have to be replicated for the defense if we really wanted to grow, especially in certain platforms, time-bound manner, which has to be monitored. The critical things have to be monitored, so possibly at the RM level. So I have hope. But the fact is that for too long, things are languishing, which need to be resolved.
I must tell the listeners that in India are making very good fighter jets called the Tejas. Warships are being made in India. The artillery guns have been a success story. The Dhanush and the ATAGs have been a success story, which are being made in India. A lot of stuff is being actually made in India. But still we have a lot of ground to cover. General Bhatia, the Prime Minister and the Raksha Mantri both are very, very serious about it. They have set targets, which are quantifiable targets in terms of make in India and also in terms of exports from India. Both things can happen because several smaller countries or friendly nations want missiles like the BrahMos or tanks or artillery guns or handheld guns. Could we emerge as export markets, sir?
Yes, we can. You gave the right example. Dhanush is an example which started off, and I was a DGMO when we got this project going. BrahMos is another example of a joint venture being successful. We have the T-90 production line. So there are models, and the warships. There are a number of examples out there. So we do have, but then these are single, these are less. I'm not being negative. We should draw from these and make sure that these good successful models are replicated in almost all domains or in all manufacturing hubs which we have. We need to create hubs, and these corridors which are coming up, I think we got to encourage them. We have heard about the corridor for the last 3-4 years. On ground, they have to move faster. We cannot move at the slow pace. This is a requirement which is there today, which was there yesterday, and this requirement is going to grow and grow. We know what is happening on the line of actual control. The China threat is manifested finally. So we'll have to make sure that all these things fall into place, and these are monitored by possibly the RM himself, or there's a monitoring group, working group which monitors that and reports the RM and the Prime Minister.
General Bhatia, since you spoke about a manufacturing complex and an ecosystem, in the foreign countries, I'm talking of Europe and the US, I'm not giving the example of Russia deliberately because giving the example only of Europe and the US. The entire ecosystem is developed on private companies. In India, the private companies hold minuscule stake in this ecosystem as of now. Would you want that stake to grow?
The private companies have to, because they'll be the major stakeholders out there. Of course, there will be different profit margins. Nothing wrong with profit margins. The control of the 41 ordnance factories, and fortunately, the corporate ordnance factories is on the cards. There's a group of ministers who is looking into it. There is something which you recommend the Shiketka Committee. As part of the Shiketka Committee, we recommended the ordnance factories, and that is happening. So we are going to see the changes. My only thing is that these changes should be correctly understood by all, and these should not remain on the paper. They should be implemented, and that is exactly what the Prime Minister said in one of the webinars in August in FICCI, that these are not proposals. We will give it concrete shape. So when the Prime Minister says that, it means that it is going to happen. Let's start believing in ourselves. We have everything going for us, and we have to believe in ourselves, and let us make this into a practical, pragmatic, implementable way ahead.
General Bhatia has brought out very important points that we need speed. We need to have a system by which we can segregate what are essential items for us which need to be imported or which can be made in India. He also brought out the Prime Minister and the Raksha Mantri both are on board in setting practical targets of having a make in India. India has done very well in warships, just started making fighter jets, artillery guns, can do much better. Seekers, guidance, missiles, we are doing much, much better than what we were doing 10, 15, 20 years ago. But this can be improved much better and be done much faster. Thank you for speaking to us, General Bhatia.
Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
You were listening to a discussion on attaining self-reliance in the defense sector under AatmaNirbhar Bharat initiative. The participants were Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, defense analyst, and Ajay Banerjee, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.